afternoon. I was about to say good morning, but good afternoon, right? Because it's 12 o'clock. So we're definitely in the afternoon. So good afternoon. Thank you guys so much for tuning in for another Monday, the single life. I really enjoy doing these segments. And I will say this every time. I know you'll probably get tired of me saying it, but it's okay. I like to make sure, for the new listeners and viewers, that we have one thing clarified. I'm not the end all tell all. I do not profess to be the sir know it all. I do not. I'm just here creating an open space for us to chat, talk about the single life on this particular Monday, talk about the single life and the things that we go through. We learn the ups and downs of being single, and also to marry that to what the single life should actually look like from God's perspective, to really get a true perspective on how God calls us to enter into this season or even move out of this season or exist while in this season of being single. So that's always the goal. So I hope you guys are always fed. I hope it's always an opportunity for growth across the board, man. Really excited for today. I'm going to rebuild, or not rebuild, but continue to build on the subject matter that we talked about last week, well, the week before last. If you guys remember, we talked about the stages of the single life and understanding and being developed in those stages. And we looked at kind of how Jesus had to go into a separation and go into that place of preparation, single, alone, by himself. He went into that place of preparation before he transitioned or before he elevated to another stage or made a big decision or something of that nature. He always went by himself. So we've got to get rid of this notion that being single is a bad thing, right? We've got to get rid of this notion that being single is a negative, it's a setback. We've got to get rid of that notion, and we've got to start to examine and look at, while in this place, in this single phase, in this single life, what am I supposed to be doing? That's the bigger question, right? What am I supposed to be doing? What is my mission? What is my assignment? What am I supposed to do in this phase? I'll give you an example, right? I'll give you an example. I'm in the grocery store all the time. Like, I go to the grocery store like most people go, like, shopping for shoes and clothes. Like, that's how often I'm in the grocery store, right? Now, I've learned that when I go in the grocery store without a plan, without a mission, it's about to be a problem. Because you know what's gonna happen? I start to wonder. I start to wonder. So whereas this should have been a mission where I went in, grabbed what I needed to grab, and got out of the store, because I didn't have a mission, because I didn't have an assignment and understanding on my purpose in the grocery store, I was just wandering around. And I'm saying a lot of us in this single phase, we are just wandering around instead of seeking God's purpose and God's defined assignment for us in this phase. We're just wandering around. And the children of Israel wandered around for what was it, 40 years? The children of Israel continued to wander in a space that they had no business being in for that amount of time. The journey for them should have just been a couple of days. However, it took 40 years. Why? Because they were lost here. They were lost here. So what I'm saying is, for us in this phase of singleness, in this space that we are in, we can't be lost here. We've got to get an understanding. So now we're purpose driven, and each day is filled with purpose and an assignment, something that we're supposed to work on and develop while in this stage, and we move out of the stage. Got it? Okay, let's look at it from this perspective, right? All of us, I would imagine, at some point have done like a factory tour, like a warehouse tour. Yes, let me know in the comments if that's the case, right? We've all been through like a factory tour. Like, one of the easiest ones off the top of my head is like the Mercedes-Benz factory in Tuscaloosa, right? So they do these tours. I even know like Golden Flake, back before they closed here in Birmingham, we used to take the kids there like every summer and do like a Golden Flake tour and just kind of see how that process was set up. But there are other. You got the Hyundai plant here in what is that, in Montgomery, maybe somewhere down there. You got the Hyundai plant. But so you have these plant tours, right? And what happened? Here's I need you to understand this. And here's well, let's look at it from this. Let me do this real quick. I want us to understand Romans 12:2 from the Translation. Romans 12:2 from the Passion Translation. I'm saying this because this is really our foundational text for where we're going to develop ourselves today. Romans 12:2, and I want the TPT, the Passion Translation, Romans 12:2, right? So here it is. And you've heard this text 1,000 times over. I just like the way the Passion Translation puts it. It says, stop imitating the ideals and the opinions of the culture around you, but be inwardly transformed by the Holy Spirit through a total reformation of how you think. This will empower you to discern God's will as you live a beautiful life, satisfying and perfect in His eyes, right? So it's important. I want you to file that away in your mind as we work through. I'll read it one more time. File Romans 12:2, the Passion Translation. File it away in your mind. We are going to work back through it, okay? So stop imitating the ideals and the opinions of the culture around you, but be inwardly transformed by the Holy Spirit through a total reformation of how you think. This will empower you to discern God's will as you live a beautiful life, satisfying and perfect in His eyes. All right, got it? Now, here's the thing. Why do we have to transform our mind? Right? Why do we have to shift our perspective? Why do we have to change how we view things in this stage? Don't worry, I got you. I got you. Here we go. All right. So let's look at it. Back to the factory tour. So when you go on a factory tour, I looked it up. So they say that the factory tour is 2 hours. That's and it says it depends kind of on who your guide is and if you're doing a self-guided or a guided tour. But on average, that tour takes about 2 hours to go through the facility, right? Now, in that tour, you got to think about it. We are getting a bird's eye view of what happens in that factory, right? A quick synopsis of how things work in that factory. Very quick, okay? So 2 hours. Each stage, each station is a required job that must be completed and checked off before it's passed to the next stage. Think about it, we're talking about factories, right? So we're just going to use the Mercedes-Benz factory in Tuscaloosa for our example today, okay? So you go into the factory, you notice each stage or each station that's set up in the factory, it has an assignment. They have a required job, right? So you have a section that's just for doors, and a section that's just for windshields, and a section that's just for trunks, and for seats, and for the radio, and for the wheels and the tires, and just the whole nine, right? So every station in the warehouse or in the factory has an assignment, right? They have an assignment. And that assignment must be checked off. It must be completed before it can pass on, right? So if our line is to just assemble doors, and maybe we just assemble driver side doors, right? So we're just seeing driver side doors come through. We're doing our checks, make sure everything's right. We pass that driver side door because the big goal is for us to crank out a completed car. But everybody must do their assignment on the conveyor belt or in their particular station in order to make sure that the finished product is the way it needs to be, right? So you got to understand jobs cannot be rushed, they must be done correctly. Every job must be done correctly and is usually checked off by some manager or somebody examining things before they pass it on to the next stage, correct? Now, here's what happens. They should not pass through a faulty part, but sometimes it happens. That's why we hear about recalls and malfunctions and things like that, right? Sometimes that happens. Sometimes there's a part that wasn't completed or it wasn't done to the standard that it needed to be done, and you have issues. That just happens. That's life, correct? Now, let's compare that real quick to don't worry, I'm gonna come back to that point. Got it? So I need you to understand that. All right. So everything must be developed properly before it's passed on to the next stage. Stay with me now. Let's now pause that example. Let's look at stages of fruit. Fruit starts from a seed. From a seed, you begin to sprout, get a plant. The plant begins to bud. The bud begins to bear fruit, right? There's a whole process for this, right? Now, can I ask you a question? Have you ever been somewhere, gotten something, or heard somebody around you that got some fruit, but they ate and they said, they picked this too early. They picked this too early. It's not quite ripe yet. It need to stay on the branch a little while longer. They got this one a little too early, right? And you hate that because you can't really enjoy it. You end up having to get rid of it, throw it away because it's not ready. It's underdeveloped. They got it too early. There was something that was supposed to happen. Maybe an amount of days, they came a little bit too quick on the amount of days. Maybe it needed 20 days. They came and picked it at 15 days, right? And those last 5 days made a difference. So you got to understand everything has a time in each stage, and there's a certain part of development and understanding that has to happen in that stage. Now, let's look at us in the single life, where we are. There are things, there are assignments that we are supposed to be developing, perfecting, growing in before we can transition to the next stage. There are things that we have to do right here in this space before we can go. And what happens is we're all ready to go to the next stage. A lot of people, man, and then let me caution you on, well, So we say a lot of things, right? But in this phase, God says, hey, you are not intended to stay there this long. There are things that I need you to do. There are things that I need you to develop. There are things that I need you to work on. There are areas that I need you to grow in. And it's a continual process. It's not like you check one thing and then you automatically move to the next phase and that's it, right? We have to continue to grow. We continue to develop. We continue to learn. We continue to gain understanding. And our pastor says we continue to gain revelation as long as we are in the right places, hearing the right things, right? That's how life is supposed to work. But what happens is we try to transition out of this phase too quickly. We try to move too quickly before everything gets developed, right? So go back to the factory tour and you start to think about it. What happens? So somebody passes through a part that was faulty or it wasn't really done to the standards that it should have been done in. What happens? You have to have a recall or you get what you call like, oh man, that car is just a lemon. Something's wrong with the car, right? You got to understand with us, we are no different. There are things that must be developed. And when they're not, oh man, we jumped into a marriage and now what happened? We got a divorce. We got a divorce. And then we got another divorce. Why? What happened? Because in the single phase, things that are supposed to be worked on, things that are supposed to be perfected, things that are supposed to be done, we're not doing because we're ready to transition to the next stage. And if you try to go too early, you're going to miss something. And missing something in life is a big problem. When we miss the proper steps, it's a big, you have to think about it. Okay, listen, you a chef, you cook, you bake. What happens when you miss a step in baking? How good does the final product turn out? You missed a step. You are not going to get the desired outcome because something was missing in the process. I remember being back in school, I hated math. Oh my God, I hated math with a passion. Anything else, I was great. Math was a problem for me. Listen, and so what happens, we would work through these problems and there would be something that you get the wrong answer. And your teacher would look at it and he or she could easily identify what the problem was based on looking at your work. That's why I always tell you, write out your work, right? They could easily identify and they would tell you, go back and look at your work. There's one step that you missed. And now you're trying to figure out, like, how the heck do I go back through this problem and figure out one step? Like that would be hard, right? So I'm saying you can't give more credence to math than you do your own life. You can't be so ready and willing to get to the final stage or to exit the single life that right here in this phase, you're skipping steps. Don't skip the steps. They are all equally important to your overall development and growth. If transition is the goal, and I believe it is the goal, if transition is the goal, we've got to make sure we are checking all the boxes and all the steps right here. You got to think about that. You can't rush it. Okay. So let's think about this. I think I talked about this 2 weeks ago, right? In one of our classrooms, they are doing the life cycle of a caterpillar. I talked about this, right? So they're doing the life cycle of a caterpillar. And I was asking the principal, Dr. B, we were talking about, it, and I said, Dr. B, like you got these caterpillars that are dead on the bottom, like they started to go into the cocoon phase and they never made it out of that phase. And she said, yeah. She said, some of them are just that's just how it goes. They all don't make it out of that stage. Some of them, that's just where their life is. When she said that, something ignited in here because I said, God cares about us. God loves us. And God does not desire for you to get into a stage of life and never make it out. You are just stuck in this perpetual stage. God has so much more for you, and God has so many things that are greater for you. It is important for you to soak up and develop everything in this stage so that you can transition. That is why we started with Romans 12:2, the Passion Translation, because God says we are supposed to be transformed. He says, ignore the culture. We got to stop looking at the culture and trying to date how the culture dates because how the culture dates is wrong. That's why you see them date for a while and they have these phenomenal weddings and they take these pictures and they do the matching pajamas. They do all the stuff that looks good, but then you check back in 3 to 5 years and they are no longer there. They are no longer together. What happened? Something in the dating phase was wrong. God says, I'm not here to have you repeating steps like that. I want you to get it, get the level of understanding, and transition. God wants you to connect with the right people. Oh man, let's talk about connection. Because see, here's the thing, right? Also, I want to say it the right way so people don't get offended. Because I'm not here to offend anyone. Please hear my heart. I'm not here to offend anyone. But sometimes the what is preventing us from transitioning, moving, growing is the fact that we continue to hitch ourselves. We connect to the wrong people and to the wrong things. Your mind has to be transformed so that you are able to see that is a bad connection. All right, I'll help you. Recently, I had to get a new phone. Okay, I'm on my phone. This is my old iPhone. I'm on a new iPhone. Now, listen, I didn't want to get a new iPhone. I was trying to hold on because this bad boy is paid for. This iPhone 12 Pro Max. It was paid for. I was good with that. It was old. I'm cool. I could text, call, FaceTime, whatever I need to do. That's all I needed. But I'll tell you what happened. The charging port on this stopped taking a charge. It stopped taking it would no longer take a charge. So I was frustrated and I was aggravated. I was like, well, I gotta get a phone because I can't be without a phone because I need a source of power for this to work. I know you see where I'm going. This is now nothing but a paperweight because it's not connected to the source. I can plug it to the power, but the source, it's got the connector is bad. So even though it's plugged in, it's not getting what it needs. See, sometimes we connected to the source, but we're also connected to something else that's pulling us from the source, like that, pulling us from the source, taking our ability to hear God and our ability to hear our assignment and our ability to develop and work on in this space. We are connected to things that are pulling us away. God says that's why you gotta be transformed and renew your mind so you don't try to operate and act as the culture because you are not of this world. We're supposed to be different. We are supposed to be different. So if we're called to be different, it's got to be bigger than words. It has to now be our actions. It has to be how we move. And I'm telling you, I have not perfected this. I'm not all the way there. There are still phases and things that I'm learning and working on and developing. But we are supposed to be different because we are connected to the source. So we are able to see and diagnose in a space. There's something I got to do right here. There's something I got to work on. There's something I have to build on right here before I can move. So I don't have to sit back and keep saying, man, marriage might not be for me. Marriage just isn't for me. I think I'm going to just be single my whole life because the Bible also says what you have, what you say. You don't believe me. Don't worry about it. I'm going to give it to you real quick. Proverbs 18 through 21, but I want the good news translation. Proverbs 18 through 21, but I want the good news translation. All right, real quick. And I apologize for getting kind of excited, but the word is so exciting to me. I promise you. I was listening to our pastor from yesterday's session, from yesterday, from church, yesterday's session, church. Man, listen. We listen. So I apologize for getting excited. Let me calm back down. All right. Listen. But we do have a phenomenal pastor. That word from yesterday, I just get excited sometimes. So listen, here we go. Proverbs 18 through 21. I want the GNT, the good news translation. Here's what it says. What you say can preserve life or destroy it. So you must accept the consequences of your words. Listen to it again. Proverbs 18:21, the good news translation. What you say can preserve or destroy life. What you say, what you are saying, how you talk about it, what you go around saying every day when you in your car, when you go through a breakup, when you sad, when you're happy, what you say, the word says you must accept the consequences of those words. See, I can't look at anybody else to stand for what I have said out of my mouth. If I continue to say, man, I just ain't gonna be married. Man, there's nobody out here for me. Man, I'm gonna always be by myself. Man, I'm so lonely. If I say that, I have to accept the consequences because God said, son, I ain't tell you to say that. I didn't tell you that was your assignment. I didn't tell you that was the charted course for you. I didn't tell you that. but you said it. So now that you started to say it, the word says you gotta stand, like everybody likes to say right now. Man, I'm standing on business. I'm standing on business. I'm 10 toes down on business. No, you are 10 toes down on what you said out of your mouth. So as you continue to say it, that thing is gonna manifest, and now you've got to accept the consequences of what you said. You got to accept those consequences. So we start looking around and trying to figure out, why am I still in this phase? God said, because you haven't learned that there's power in your mouth. And if I allow you to connect with somebody and you start to say the wrong things over them, and they got a kingdom assignment too, and you start to rub off on them to where they start saying the wrong things also, now I got two people that's just wandering in the wilderness like the children of Israel. I'm not willing to keep losing. God doesn't lose. He won't lose. He can't lose. So why are you in this space? Watch your mouth. Watch your mouth. Get your mouth right and your words right. But I'm not done there, okay? Listen, because you got to understand the stages of the conveyor belt, because the overall goal is what? A completed car. So the overall goal for us in the single phase is to make it out of the single phase and to now connect with the person that God desired and designed and predestined for you to be with. But that thing is on hold because we keep wasting time. We're trying to rush out the stage. We're trying to hurry up and get there. Like my daughter, I was talking to her last night, and I said it was something she did. And I said, Jordan, listen. I said, baby, stop rushing for me. I said, stop rushing. I said, I know like you see things on TV and they glorify certain things. I said, stop trying to rush it. Enjoy being a little girl because you're gonna miss it. You're gonna miss it. When you get into this adulting phase, you're gonna miss that. I saw a meme last week, and listen, I'd be doggone if it wasn't right. The lady said, I'm trying to find the childish place my mama used to tell me to stay in because I want to go back. I'll stay in it right now because adulting is not fun. I'll stay in that place. I was like, baby, listen, I'm with you. Where is the childish place that they used to tell us to stay in? I'm on the way back to it. Let me hang out there, right? So I'm telling my daughter, like, don't rush it. Enjoy the place that you are in. Enjoy being a little girl. And as you transition through life and you move to other levels, you will enjoy those levels. But stay focused on the space that you're in right now and enjoy it. Don't rush it. Okay, but listen, I'll close with this because I promise you, it's so much more to say that. But listen, I'm gonna close with one story. I want to talk about Gehazi. All right, Second Kings 5:20 through 27. I want to talk about Gehazi. Like you gonna get it. You gonna understand why too. You gonna understand why. Remember, what was our foundational text? Romans 12:2 TPT, the Passion Translation. Okay. Remember, we are to be transformed, but I'm gonna show you why we gotta be transformed. Second Kings 5:20 through 27. I believe that's what I need. All right, so listen, here we go. Second Kings 5:20 through 27. But what version did I want? All right, cool. It's okay. I don't want the King James version. Hold on. Let me get the let's get the message. All right, here we go. All right, so Second Kings 5:20 through 27. I'm closing right here. Second Kings 5:20 through 27. But Gehazi, the servant of Elijah, the man of God, behold them. All right, let me give you some context really quick, right? So who was it? Naaman. Naaman came in leprosy. He came, he was coming to the king to be healed. And Elisha gave him an assignment. If my memory serves me correct, even Naaman didn't even really necessarily agree with the assignment initially. But one of his servants was like, the man is a prophet, and if he gave us instruction, then that means we probably need to carry out the instruction. See, there's a lot in that because a lot of us get an assignment from God, we get instruction from God, but we don't want to carry out the assignment from God. We pray and ask God for wisdom. God gives wisdom. We don't carry out the wisdom. We pray and ask God to give us insight. God gives us insight. We don't carry out. We don't walk in it. Okay, that's a whole nother story for another day. Don't worry about it. I got you. All right. So boom. So Gehazi is Elisha's servant. Okay, so Naaman gets ready to leave. He gets healed. He gets ready to leave, and he's trying to give Elisha these things. He's a king, so he's wealthy. He's trying to give gold, silver, clothes, all, like whatever you need. I got you because I've just been healed. I want to bless you. Elisha said, no. All glory goes to God. I don't need any of it. All glory goes to God. I don't need any of it. See, there's something in that for us. See, and there's sometimes that we've got to learn that there's so many things that we have to develop in our stages. And one of the things we need to develop is how to be humble and how to not seek our own gain, but understand that the credit goes to God. It's never me, it's always God. I don't need you to reward me. My reward is doing what God called me to do. That is my reward, doing what God called me to do. I'd rather be. I had a friend tell me we were talking about he got a new job, and he said, "Man, listen, I only move when God tells me to move." He said, "I'd rather be in place than be out of line and be disobedient. I'd rather be in place. I would rather be in place, in the place that God called me to be in, than to be out of line and be disobedient." Right? So here, all right. So boom. So Elisha says, "No, no, no, no. All praise and all glory goes to God. I don't need any of that. Like I'm good. Thank you so much. Just go and be healed. Yada 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 yada. Yada, right? All right. Cool. So." Gehazi, who acts like us in a sense. Gehazi essentially says, like, no, we were too nice to him. He was ready to give us things, and we gotta find the we gotta find the reason that those things were for us. See, a lot of times, excuse me, a lot of times we feel like certain things are for us that aren't really for us. That is why I started with Romans 12:2. Here's why we have to transform our mind. Our mind has to be changed so that we no longer try to see through the world's optics. We no longer try to see that because we will look for rewards and we know our reward is from God. That's where our reward comes from. But don't worry, I got you. So listen. So Gehazi follows after Naaman, and when Naaman saw him running, he stopped the chariot and to meet him, and he got down. And he said, "Is all well?" And he said, "All is well. My master," so he lied. Okay, so start with the first thing. He lied. "My master has sent me, saying, Behold, even now there be come to me from Mount Ephraim 2 young men of the sons of the prophets. Give them, I pray thee, a talent of silver and 2 changes of garments." Now, Gehazi has conjured up this whole lie for his own personal gain. But keep in mind, we are sticking with why we have to be transformed. So here's what happened. And Naaman said, "Be content, take 2 talents." And he urged him and bound 2 talents of silver in 2 bags. And with 2 changes of garments, he laid them upon the 2 servants, and they bare them before him. And when he came to the tower, he took them from their hand and bestowed them in his house. And he let them go, and they departed. But he went in and stood before the master. And Elisha said to him, "Whence comest thou, Gehazi?" And he said, "Thy servant went nowhere," essentially. So now he lied to Naaman, and now you're going to come back and you're going to lie to Elisha. This is us. Here's why our mind has to be transformed. Because what happened? Gehazi saw something that he wanted, but it wasn't for him. See, a lot of times we see with our natural eyes what we think is for us. See, that spouse that you think is your spouse, or that girl, man, she looks so good, like I think that's my woman, or that man that looks so good to you, I think that's my husband. No, it's not. You are supposed to be transformed. God will show you what's for you. God will tell you what's for you. God will do that. He takes on that assignment. You don't have to try to find out what job is for you, what mate is for you, what house is for you, what car is for you. God said, "That's on me. I am your Jehovah Jireh, your provider." My mom used to make us say these confessions when I was growing up in the car every morning. We would say these confessions and we would have to give out all these names. And I used to get so angry when we did it, but now I'm thankful because they stay in my mind. So I don't care what happens. I'm going to always know God is who? Jehovah Jireh. And what does that name mean? My provider. So if I am trying to provide for myself, that means I've already stepped out the lane and I'm missing something where I was supposed to be developed on sitting back and allow God to give me wisdom and show me what he has provided. I stepped out and said, "No, I'm the man, I'm the leader, and I'm the provider." See, that's something that has to be developed in a single life, because the way a marriage or the way any relationship works is God on top. God speaks through the man and speaks to the woman. This is how it goes. This is how we move in accordance. But if you haven't perfected in singleness, hearing God on your own, I can promise you, you're going to struggle with trying to hear God with somebody else talking in your ear at the same time. So you don't know what you have to work on in the stage. The job is just to do the work. Okay, listen, so don't worry. Okay, so look. But Gehazi went in, stood in front of the Elijah, said, "Whence comest thou, Gehazi?" And he said, "Thy servant went nowhere." Verse 26. And he said unto him, "Went not mine heart with thee?" Basically, he's asking him, "Was I not with you when you went?" Okay. When the man turned when the man turned again from his chariot to meet thee, Is it a time to receive money, to receive garments? Notice he said, is it a time to receive money and to receive garments and olive yards and vineyards and sheep and oxen and men servants and maid servants? What was he telling them? This ain't the time for that. But see, we got to understand the time factor in this space. It may not be the time for a wife in the single life because it's the time for you to be developed. It's not time for that yet. Don't start speaking negative and don't start saying the wrong things. Just understand it's not time for it right now. What is it time for? Me to be in sync with God and learn how to hear God and go out and be obedient. Hear God, be obedient. Hear God, be obedient. That's how we move is hear God, go do. Hear God, go out and do. Be obedient. That is what we are supposed to perfect. And if there are places and things that we are struggling on, it's hard to transition without mastering that assignment. Okay. Last but not least, verse 27. The leprosy, therefore, of Naaman shall cleave unto thee, and unto thy seed forever. And he went out from his presence as a leper, as white as snow. What happened? Gehazi did that to himself because he was trying to move as the culture. My boy saw the silver, and my boy saw the gold, and my boy saw the clothes and said, oh, yeah, I'm finna stun on him. I'm about to stun on him. Yeah, I'm about to put it on tomorrow. Yeah, I'm about to put it on when I that gold and that silver, that's me. Oh, I got it. That's how he was thinking, which is how we sometimes think when we see something because we can go get it, don't mean we're supposed to get it. That's a revelation in and of itself. Just because you can go get it doesn't mean you're supposed to get it. See, you got to learn to submit to God in all things, not some things. See, we're backwards. We want to submit to God when it comes to like, I'm sick and I need a healing. I'm going to submit to God then. God says, submit everything. Submit that relationship to me. I'm going to tell you that's not the right one. Now, you want to go and you want to waste 7, 8, 9, 10 years of your life. That's fine. But I'm telling you, that's not the one. But you hard-headed. My dad used to tell me, son, a hard head make a soft behind. And you're going to learn that. Because I was like, no, Dad, I'm good. Trust me, it does. Because he used to wear me out. That is a true fact. You're going to learn something. Play around long enough, you're going to learn. You're going to find out. I would rather find out what God has than find out what the world has in store for me. Because what I know, God is my father. What he has for me is carefully selected. It's carefully selected. It's carefully selected. What God has chosen for me is carefully selected. You got to think about it. It's kind of like when you go to a store and you start flipping through the rack trying to find your size. You flip, you flip, you flip. You start getting frustrated because you always at the back of the rack of a shirt that you really want, or a dress or pants or whatever that you really want, and they don't have your size. That is a sign for you that this is not for you. That's why I don't have your size. It's not for you. God said you keep flipping through the racks of life trying to find things. They're not your size. They're not your personality. They're not your look. They're not for you. Those things aren't for you. Submit yourself to God. Don't lose trying to be like Gehazi and trying to go get something because you feel like it's owed to you. It's not owed to you. The only thing that's owed to you is what God says is yours. And in order to figure out what that is, you're going to have to submit and get wisdom from him. That's it. It's simple. I ain't gonna hold y'all up. We've been up 33 minutes now. I'm done. Look, closing the iPad. We done. We done. Listen, thank y'all so much for tuning in. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate your kind words, your encouraging words. I appreciate your support. And you guys just locking in. Never miss a Monday. Whether it's my plate, my choice, whether it's the single life, never miss a Monday. We locked in, we family, and we're gonna do this thing together like this. I got y'all, all right? Y'all be blessed and have a great week.